Well, hey there, gamers. It's your best friend Carter. Here with a little video that I don't know. I haven't been able to talk to any medical professionals recently, and I've kind of just had a lot of shit building up in my brain for a while, and I don't really want to dump that on individual people, go into the DMs and just complain about how terrible I feel for like an hour and a half. So, I don't know. Maybe publicly uploading a full like mental health breakdown is maybe not the best idea, but I mean, hey, no one's got to watch it if they don't want to. And I don't know. It's more of just a therapeutic thing for me, I think. Just like kind of vomiting some things I've been thinking about out, not in any particular order, no particular structure. But just doing it into like a blank void feels bad and boring. And also, it would be boring for me as well. So, I'm gonna play a little Monster Hunter just for funsies. I I don't know why I've been into Monster Hunter again recently. I had a really big Monster Hunter kick probably around, I want to say, tail end of November up until like February, March of 2024. Yeah, I mean, for those who know me, I think you know what was going on at that point, but if someone else stumbles across this video, I was going through a very difficult period at that time. Very nasty breakup, a lot of interpersonal conflict, a lot of mental struggles, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of that sort of business. And I don't know, Monster Hunter was just a really beefy, meaty game for me to sink my teeth into. And it didn't exactly make me feel good, but it was helpful. And I kept playing it even after I mostly felt better. Well, like moment to moment daily felt better because it was, when you're going through like something really hard, you're like moment to moment, day in, day out, there's just like a constant like ache, a constant pain, constant anxiety, whatever the case may be. So once I was past that, I I still kept playing. And I don't know, I've been drawn to it again recently. I'm really excited for Wilds to come out. I hope I don't burn myself out too hard before Wilds. I don't have as much to like grind in this game now, so I don't think I could fully immerse myself in it the way I did before. So I think I'll probably just naturally drift away from it in time to be like re-engaged for Wilds. But also all my friends are going to be playing it when it comes out, I think. And I've sort of got I don't know. I've sort of got like a weird brain where it's like I've got like several tiers of like priority for games I want to play, where there's like the number one game I want to play at any given time, which is usually like a single player game or something that I play myself. Then the next tier is whatever my friends are playing, because I like playing with my friends, and that'll pretty much always override whether or not I like or dislike a game. Even if my friends are playing something I don't really like, if it's a game that I do play and it's not like, oh, I have to sink my fucking self into a 1,000-hour MMO to like play with them right now. If it's just like a game that I can pick up and play, I mean that's like basically always something I'm interested in doing. And then like lower than that is like things that like I know I want to play, but I'm just like not currently in the mood for. Where it's like, oh, I played like 2/3 of Amori and I still haven't finished it. Oops, I should probably finish that sometime, but it's like the lowest priority of enjoyment for me right now, so I'm just not feeling it. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but basically, Monster Hunter is #1 on the list right now. Even if Monster Hunter is not at the top of the list when Wilds comes out, it'll be like second priority because I'll want to play with my friends. So I am not too worried about burning out. But all that aside, let's go ahead and start it up. So this is my main character. That is usually not the armor he wears. I have a really stupid build equipped right now, where I have like full defense on the heavy bowgun. Like literally like as much defense as I can possibly get, basically. And I've got like full shield mod, and I've got a Safi Jiva heavy bowgun, so I can have like the defense 6 boost that gives me a bunch of defense. It's such a pointless build. It's just called the problem. And that's a nice little double entendre, because he's a problem for the monster because he can't break through his beefy huge defense, and he's a problem for his team because he fucking blows ass and doesn't do anything. So that's what's going on there. But he's basically maxed out on everything. There's things I could do. I could kill Fatalis more and like get the other Fatalis weapons and like learn new weapons, but like I've kind of got most of the shit that I want on this account. So if I'm ever on him, I'm there probably because I want to fight a specific monster, and I don't want to have to worry about like needing shit for a specific build. This is the guy I've been playing on more recently. I thought it would be really funny. I wanted to learn how to use the longsword, and so I thought it would be fun to do just like a playthrough with the longsword. So I thought, oh, this will be a nice organic way to learn how to use this weapon. And I was trying to think, okay, well, if I'm making a character specifically for longsword, what should I make him be like? So I gave him fucking like goofy ass anime hair and like dark eyeshadow and named him Wraith and put all of his like auto callouts as like the edgiest shit you've ever heard, and all he does is use the longsword. So that's his deal. So every time I play like multiplayer with someone, it's just my character saying like imbeciles or whatever whenever he gets healed. It's so stupid. I actually get embarrassed while I'm playing it because I'm like, the people are seeing the things my character is saying. They can like be like, man, this guy's a fucking loser. Whoever is behind this character, something's not right about him. But that being said, let's pop in and play him. So I've been doing a couple things on this character. I've basically finished most of the Safajiva farming I wanted to do. Here, let me show. Oops. Let me show what I've been working on. So this is actually not the right thing. Is this all? Oh no, I need to equip this. So this is the. I hate that it does this and like throws it in the garbage because it's like, oh, you don't have it equipped or whatever. Stupid and dumb. I was gonna set up an Elytrion build, but I'm realizing I want some better armor before I do Elytrion, so I'm actually not gonna do that yet. So yeah, what do I need? I have crit boost, I have weakness exploit. I need one more point of attack boost. I need... Can I do Divine Blessing? That might not be too bad. I wonder if oh, I need Geologist because I'm gonna go to the Guiding Lands in a second, so I need one of those. And then what else could I equip that wouldn't be totally useless? I could just equip more. I do like stun resist, but only one stun resist. Actually, one stun resist is really high value because it's 60. It's 0% to 60%. So I'll take one steadfast. Then I think we'll do evasion, and we will do... Honestly, I'll just take defense. That's kind of funny. That puts me at defense 4, which gives me a decent number of buffs there. It's not, like, terrible. Oh, did I... Yeah, I need to do Rocksteady. I guess I'll just go double attack. Okay, cool. So yeah, this is just kind of a very basic build I've been running. Can I show you what my Safi uh shit has? Yeah, I can show you. So I'm running Teostra technique, attack increases, and then one affinity increase, just because I'm running a Master's Touch build. This is definitely more cozy than optimized, partially just because I'm not super acclimated with what is, like, super turbo min-max ideal for Longsword, but also just because, like, I mean, this is fairly easy to put together, and I don't need to, like, worry too much about it. So what I've got for Elatrion, I've got this ice longsword, and then I've got this fire one, just like with full element amp. And there's definitely better longswords to use for this, like just in terms of like ideal damage output, but I really value having the extra Teostra technique because the Teostra armor set sucks mega butt. There's like 2 pieces of armor that are acceptable, and it's these 2, and it's like, oh, what did they give me? Oh, let's see. 2 crit eye, pretty good. Latent power, not great. Weakness exploit, okay. Heat guard, useful for like 1 fight. Oh boy. And then the other ones are even worse. So it's just like, yeah, I don't know. At some point, I'm sure I'll just drop Master's Touch entirely, and just like build for sharpness or whatever, build like handicraft or something. But yeah, that's this is what I've got for right now. Currently, actually, can I? No, I can't because I haven't bought them yet. There are 2 things I want to mark down. That I need to farm out. I need to farm Raging Bracky, and I need to farm Brute Tigrex, in order to get some parts from them. I actually had a notepad thing. I hope this doesn't fuck anything up. Okay, yeah, so I need the Raging Bracky coil and the Raging Bracky boots, and then I need the Brute Tigrex chest. And that'll give me some pretty good gear, and it'll give me Agitator's Secret, which is really nice. So, yeah. I'll probably do the Guiding Lance and just start leveling up Rot. Because if I try and talk about anxiety and depression and agoraphobia while I do Raging Bracky, I'm just gonna bitch about Raging Bracky the entire time because I'm a little baby who can't handle it. We might have to bounce somewhere else to like get a Rotten Veil monster to spawn. But yeah, I guess let's start the conversation. So, just for context, I have historically struggled a lot with just depression in general. Since a fairly young age, just a lot of insecurity issues in like middle school that sort of took root and then became more complex and more severe when I reached whatever it's called, high school. And it was manageable. Like, I could live my life for the most part, and then just like at 9 p.m. on a weekday, I'd just feel terrible for a while. And it wasn't good, it wasn't fun, but like I was mostly functional, right? Like, I could be a person. However, recently things have gotten notably more difficult, I'll say. For a couple of reasons. When I was around 17 or 18, I think, my family was planning to go to Disneyland. And I always loved going on vacation. I always loved traveling. I loved going to new places and seeing stuff. I loved eating at new places. I loved the sea. I loved seeing big buildings. All that sort of stuff. I was very much just like I roundly enjoyed traveling, you know. And for some reason, I still don't know, I don't have like a clear answer as to why. I just started getting really sick like a few days before we were preparing to go. I just started getting really, really ill. And I don't. It must have just been anxiety. I thought maybe something was wrong with me. I thought maybe I had an ulcer. I was just really, really concerned because I just felt so nauseous all the time and so stressed out. And I was like retching a lot. And I was like, oh my God, is something wrong with me? Is something wrong with me? And I talked to an advice nurse on the phone, and she was like, do you struggle with anxiety? And I was like, no, I do not. Not historically, at least. Like, I get like a regular amount of anxious when bad shit happens, you know? But, anxiety, like, especially chronic anxiety, was never something I dealt with up to that point, so it was very confusing because I didn't think I had anything to be even stressed out about in the first place. So that's another thing that's still to this day I haven't been able to find a good satisfying answer to that. Is I just don't even know like I don't even know what caused me to get that stressed out in the first place. Like I don't have a good like origin. I don't have like any strong idea, any strong sense of what caused all those problems to happen initially, but I tried to power through, and we got in the car to go to Disneyland, and we made it about an hour and a half or so. And I was feeling pretty good. I had like a big playlist that I was gonna listen to of music I like to help me, stay calm and chill. I was like wrapped up in a nice cozy blanket, all that good stuff. I was basically fully kitted out with like the don't tweak out build. I had all the gear. And once we stopped to get, it was either lunch or dinner. I can't remember. I think it might have been early dinner because we were expecting to be on the road for a while. Basically, I just I was feeling good, and I don't know. It's still a little bit hazy how a lot of the stuff went down. I like remembered a certain way, but with something like this, especially when you know that you were super anxious the entire time, it can be difficult to know exactly what is correct and what is just you thinking you remember it properly. But from what I remember, I felt really, really good. And then we went to stop at like a barbecue place, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I feel great. I want to have a nice meal right now because I'm like basically on vacation. I'm just going to like enjoy myself, and so I got like a bacon cheeseburger and some fries, and it was good as hell. And I made it through like half of the burger, and then I started to get super, super anxious. And I think it was just because I was like, did I push my limits too far? Did I like have all this greasy food, and now we're gonna get on the road, and I'm gonna get sick on the road, and then I'm gonna cause all these problems here. Everybody have to get out of the car, and I'm gonna have to go. And you can see that I'm like very clearly an anxious person because I immediately have a laundry list of ideas of what I could have been freaking out about, right? And I don't even know definitively what it was. So you can tell that I'm an advanced tweaker. But yeah, I just started getting really anxious, and so I like went deeper into the mall and like sat in the mall bathroom. It's like big empty bathrooms. Got into a stall, just started like put my head in my hands, tried to do deep breathing, and I just could not get a handle on it. I was too young and I was too inexperienced when it came to anxiety. Thinking about the anxiety I have these days, I feel like the anxiety I had then was probably less severe. But I just didn't know how to deal with it, so it was still basically just completely insurmountable, and I just had to go back out to the car and say, hey guys, I'm not going to be able to make it to Disneyland. I'm so stressed out. I feel insane. I feel like I'm going to explode at any moment. And they were like, well, um, that's terrible. That sucks. But if you really think you need to, we will go. And so we went home. And we went home, and I felt terrible about it. I felt like I'd like failed my family because I'd like ruined everyone else's vacation. And they said, "Oh, it's fine. You're more important than the vacation." And to be clear, I believe them when they say that. I don't think my family are assholes, and they're like, "Yep, no big deal. Ruin our vacation that we only get to go on once a year, but it doesn't matter. Nope, doesn't matter because you're the most important guy in the world." They were clearly being earnest. They were serious and they were supportive. But that was really when it started, I think, is just that experience was so stressful and it left such a lasting impact of like, this is what my anxiety has the capacity to do. It has the capacity to ruin something for so many people, and it has the capacity to make me feel so terrible and so overwhelmed. And the thing is, that was like a really severe incident. That was like, I was traveling really far from home and got really anxious and had to go like an hour and a half back. And I really didn't have another experience like that again for a really long time. I would sometimes get worried when I was out and about, but for like years, I was totally chill. It seemed like kind of a one-off thing, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm scared of going somewhere else, but I'll try and go, and I would make it there, and it would be okay, and then sometimes I'd be kind of anxious, and I'd have to, like, pace around a lot. There was one particular Monterey trip, I remember I spent most of the trip just kind of, like, walking around Monterey, just, like, trying to, like, keep calm, not feel too sick, Back then, we thought it also might be a bowel problem, so I was doing my awesome bowel stretching exercises. Find the pressure point in your stomach and push to make sure that everything's loose up in there. So I was on full like anxiety damage control mode. Um, but I made it to Monterey and was okay, and I joined my family for some meals, and we hung out, and I mean, no spoilers for you for later when I get into what I've been dealing with recently, but the idea of making it that far is completely unfathomable to me today. So the fact that I made it there in the first place is crazy. Um, but yeah, the anxiety really started to lessen up by that point. Um, I went places constantly in high school. I had a driver's license before most of my friends did, so I was kind of our designated driver in a lot of cases, and I would take us out of town. I'd take us like to the town over. I'd like go on the freeway and take us a couple towns away. Totally fine with that. Totally fine with going to other towns with other people, letting them drive me. Totally cool with all that. I was totally fine with eating as well. I wasn't really scared of eating and like making myself sick like I was during the Disneyland trip. None of that was really an issue for me. And then I don't know when it started exactly. When I like started to like have it become like kind of a problem. Um, I think part of it was just that I have IBS, and so it stopped. It wasn't so much of just like, oh, I have anxiety about travel and stuff. It was just like there is a possibility at any given time that I will just get sick, and like that's concerning and something I need to watch out for, right? So that was definitely part of it. Um, but I think sometime around my first year of university, after my 2 years of asynchronous community college, I was going to campus physically, and knew I was going to be there for a pretty extended period of time. And because of like our car situation and because of how parking was on campus, it wasn't really viable for me to drive myself. So I knew I was relying on someone, either me taking the bus or me getting dropped off by a parent, I knew that I was going to be there and not have like ready access to like leave if I needed to. And that was stressful because I had IBS. I was prone to get sick kind of out of nowhere. I didn't really have any specific triggers for it. Like, it wasn't like, oh, as long as I don't eat spicy food at noon on a Thursday, I'll be fine. It's like, a lot of the time it was kind of just like variable. It's like sometimes I'll get sick, sometimes I won't. So that was something that I found to be stressful, but ultimately it was manageable. It wasn't something that I was like super scared of all the time. But it was something I was conscious of. I'd be out getting lunch or dinner with friends. I'd be like, oh, I hope this doesn't make me sick. Being like in an enclosed restaurant where it's like, oh, everyone's in the restaurant now, and I need to, I need to stay at this restaurant until everyone finishes their meal. Even if I don't want to eat, I've got to be here for a while. That sort of thing was stressful. But again, it was all manageable. Like it felt like a regular level of anxiety for a person who was more anxious than normal, if that makes sense. It's like at that point I didn't think I had any kind of anxiety disorder or anything, or I didn't think I had like any like real serious issues that were needing to be addressed. I was just like, okay, I have this medical issue. It makes me anxious. I will deal with it. But what really, really started to make things go bad was the what I mentioned at the start, that bad breakup and the interpersonal conflict. So, just to give a bit of background, I was with an old partner, a different partner, for quite a few years, and in January of 2023, I went to go visit them, and I visited them via plane. I went from California to Oregon by myself. There was no one there with me. I did all the onboarding stuff myself, and I was on the plane by myself, and I was anxious about it. But again, it was a normal human level of anxiety, where it's like, oh, I've never been on a plane before. I'm scared of being that far up in the air. What if I die? It was like, so many people are afraid of planes. It felt like a very normal fear to have, even if it's a normal irrational fear. I'll say, you don't send someone off to the loony bin because they're scared of spiders or they're scared of a plane, right? Even though rationally, that you're probably not going to be causing any problems by those things. So that went fine. And then I was in Oregon, and that was fine too. There were a couple of instances where we were eating out, and I got worried, what if I get sick from eating something out here? Let's call it, and I'll head back to the hotel. Again, fairly normal level of anxiety. It's just okay, I have an issue I know about. Let's manage it. Let me take a little sip of my Wawa real quick. Ah, there we go. And that was how the whole trip went. It was very pleasant. I had a very nice time. I was mostly not anxious throughout. And, I even felt like I'd made some progress on the plane ride back. I was like, hey, I'm not really that scared of the plane now. So I even got over the small amount of anxiety I had on that trip. And it was pretty chill. So I eventually stopped seeing that person, and I started seeing someone else, and I decided to go visit them and a couple of our mutual friends. I had a friend who was gracious enough to pay for my airfare, and gracious enough to house us all during the trip. And so I was like, hey, I don't have to pay. I don't really have anything I need to do for this period of time. I like this partner of mine. I like these friends. I see no reason not to do this, right? And in addition to that, because the trip I'd gone on prior via plane had gone so well, I didn't think that there would be any problems with this, right? I was like, I went on the plane and it was fine last time, right? So it didn't even occur to me that there could be a unique issue or that I could like be struggling with anxiety because of distance or because of the plane in this circumstance, because I thought I was done with that, right? Like, that wasn't even on my radar anymore. But a couple key things to keep in mind. Number one, I have known these people for a shorter period of time than I had known my previous partner. We'd been together for like 3 or 4 years. I knew these people for about a year, and I'd only been dating my partner for like 4 months of that year. Right, so much much less time in general. Next thing to keep in mind is that I went from California to Oregon the first time, right? Which was, you know, just a sizable distance. It's like a 1.5 hour plane ride, which, you know, is pretty significant for someone who'd never been on a plane before and who was doing it alone for the first time. But, you know, the proximity to my home was not that far, right? Like, it was an adjacent state. So, it wasn't that bad. It felt far at the time, but, as I've now come to recognize, it was actually not that far, because the place I went, this second time was New York, which is just about as far away as I could get from California while still being in the country. And it was like upstate New York too. So it was like and not that it really would have mattered because New York is small, but something about like the idea of being like on the upper tip of like one of the upper tips of the country just felt like extra stressful, I guess. And we'll get into that a little bit more about like how I felt about the whole situation, but yeah, so I was going somewhere much farther. But, you know, I'm a huge simp, and I like this person a lot, so I was like, well, I'll go, and, that'll be that. Sorry, I was trying to see if it was leaving or not. Which it is, clearly. But, yeah, I didn't think it would be an issue, so I just full sent it, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's run it, man. Let's run it. Let's just go. And the third thing to also keep in mind is that I went to Oregon for, I want to say, 2 or 3 full days, and then the like adjacent like bracket days were just me coming and going, basically. So I was there for a fairly short amount of time. I was supposed to be in New York for 10 days, which is quite the step up. At the time, I thought it would be fine because, you know, I like this person a lot. I want to see this person. I want to see my friends. Let's go for a long time. This will be like the most fun ever. It was very much like a giddy moment of like, I'm an adult, I can go do something crazy. It'll be fun. But as I'm sure you can tell, based on the fact that this is a whole ass video about how I'm an anxious disaster and I feel terrible all the time, I was not as well prepared for this trip as I thought I would be. Fucking shocker. I know. And my friends were gracious enough not to outright say they told me so, but I had a couple of friends who were slightly skeptical of not only this group of people in general, which they were right to be, because these people were not as great as I had initially made them out to be. But also they said, hey, maybe you shouldn't go by yourself. Maybe you shouldn't go for this long. Maybe you shouldn't go this far. Maybe you should wait until you know them a little bit longer before you go like this. But, you know, simp, overconfident, thought the previous experience would be enough, etc. Basically ignored all of the potential issues that might result from going. Right? Stupid fucking me. So I packed up. I couldn't sleep the whole time the day before because I was too excited. So I was on no sleep. I went to the airport at like 5 in the morning because I was going cross country and I had a connecting flight, which is a thing I'd never done before, by the way. I'd never done a connecting flight either. So, man, the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, why the fuck did I do any of this? Why did I think any of this was a good plan, right? But, you live and you learn and you deal with the fallout for a full year afterwards. But yeah, I got on the plane. It was by the way, it was a different plane too, like vastly different. Because obviously I was taking a very short flight the first time, so I was on a much smaller plane. It was like 4 seats wide throughout, 2 rows of two, and it was much smaller. And I was towards the front, not in first class, but I was just towards the front, so I was seeing less shit in front of me. This time, I was in a giant plane, huge like United plane, with 3 seats in each aisle, which I think is generally the standard for most like big planes. And there was a TV screen on the back of each seat. So there was an insane amount more of like visual stimulus going on. There were people talking. We were super tightly packed in, and also I'm like a tall motherfucker. I'm tall and I'm a fat fuck. So I'm this big ass dude crammed into this seat with this fucking backpack beneath my feet. And I overpacked, obviously. The backpack I had was completely overstuffed and it was taking up all my leg room. Of course. And I was on this flight, and it was mostly boring at first, right? It was mostly boring at first because I was just like, ugh, you know, this shit is I'm just on this plane for like 5.5 hours, just doing nothing. Like I could like maybe talk to my friends like a little bit on my phone. I didn't want to waste my battery because I didn't have like a mobile charger or anything, so I didn't want to do anything too crazy. Eventually, I decided to ask for a pair of like the disposable earbuds and just watch something on the TV screen. And I started watching a documentary about you might have heard of it. It's I don't remember what it's called, but it's like that documentary where it's like these people find out that they have he finds out he has an identical twin, and then they find out they have an identical triplet, and it turns out they were all separated at birth because of some scientist was doing something about like how to different kids grow up from the same family or whatever if they're separated, something of that nature. It's like this big like crazy expose documentary. And it was interesting. I should probably finish it one day because I actually really was enjoying it, but I basically started watching this and I was enjoying it, and I was like, okay, this is much less boring. And this seems to be the connecting thread throughout this story, right? Is I don't know what exactly caused the problem, but I started like tweaking the fuck out, like crazy tweaking. Like partway through this, it was like 3.5 hours into the flight. I just got so unbelievably stressed out. And basically, I just started like shaking. I was just like shaking and having like a full panic attack, like a full breakdown. It was just like just a million thoughts running through my head at once. Just like I'm crammed into this tiny spot on this plane. There's a million things going on in front of me. I can see everyone on this plane. It's gonna be so long. I can't leave. I can't land. I have to wait until we land to get out. I have no choice. I can't fall asleep. I can't do anything. I can't focus. There's no room. Even if I get up, there won't be any room because the aisle is so small. If you have anxiety, you know how it is, right? Just like a lot of thoughts just like pile on top of each other. And honestly, like you can't do it justice by visually saying it, You can't do it justice by like saying it out loud because you are limited by how your mouth works, right? Your brain is not quite so limited, so all of these thoughts are literally like stacking on top of each other in real time. So I'm like thinking all of this quite literally at once, and I'm like full on like shivering and shaking. My body is like going cold. Like it's bad. So I get up and I head to like the shitty tiny bathroom, and I like lock myself in the bathroom hoping that like, okay, I'm in a secluded space, maybe I can calm down now. Yeah, dumbass, you just put yourself in the most enclosed space on the plane. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? I start tweaking harder. It gets worse. I don't know if for anyone who hasn't been on an airplane before, or for anyone who hasn't been on a United airplane before, I don't know if there's like a notable difference with how this one was laid out, with how most are laid out. But the way that it worked is that towards the very back of the plane is the area where the attendants had like a number of things they were using, like, you know, they've got the cabinet with all the drinks in it, they've got the extra trays, they've got like medical supplies if there's an emergency, all that stuff is back there. And it's like right next to the two bathrooms. So that stuff is happening there. And basically, this is like the most spacious area on the plane. Because it's like it's enough room for like 2 or 3 people to stand, like conservatively 2 or 3 people. I fucked that up. That wasn't that bad. Conservatively, like 2 or 3 people could stand there. And of course, that space is not for me. That space is for the people who are working there and need to deal with the things that are there. But me, freaking the fuck out, I just stood there and was like shaking and shivering and like asking, is it okay if I stand here for a second? Do you have any water? I can have a cup of water. And they're like, yeah, sure, have this cup of water. And, you know, I'm sure they must see tons of people scared of planes. So they were all very cordial, they were all very nice and polite, and I appreciate them for that. But yeah, I was just in a real tizzy, as it were. And basically, I just drank the water, stood there for a bit. They asked me, it's like, oh, are you okay? Is everything all right? And I was like, I think I literally said, like, I've been better, like a fucking stupid sitcom character. It's like, oh, I've been better, like having like the worst panic attack of my life. So I drink my drink, and they're like, I'm really sorry, but you are gonna have to move back to your seat at some point. I'm like, no, of course, I'm sorry to be an inconvenience, because obviously, I'm terrified of, like, inconveniencing anyone under normal circumstances, so especially now, it's like another added level of stress. It's like, I cannot possibly inconvenience these workers, I'll die. Right. So, basically, I'm just, standing there, and I'm like, okay, do you guys have any melatonin or anything? Do you have any, like, sleeping meds? Is there anything you can give me to, like, maybe knock me out for the rest of the journey? And they say, no, unfortunately we don't. First of all, that's gotta be the biggest oversight of the century. No, like, sleep meds on, like, the fucking thing where it's, like, famously everyone just wants to sleep through this activity. Come on. Bring some fucking NyQuil or something. Don't fucking tell me you don't have sleep meds. Plain sucks. That being said, I was like, okay, well, shit, that's my main plane out the window. What am I gonna do? So, I say, alright, sometimes when I was nauseous before, my mom would give me, like, Coke, and she'd tell me to sip on it. She's like, oh, Coke helps settle a stomach. I don't know if that shit's true or not. It sounds so fake, but, maybe it's true. Maybe it's real. So, I say, can I please have a Coke? And they say, yes, sure, please have this Coke. And they hand me a Coke. I go back to my seat, and I just, like, I close my eyes, I just start doing, like, full, like, deep breathing. I'm just, like, trying to, like, enter my Zen mode. I take little sips of the Coke to try and, like, settle my stomach. And we land. It's, like, 50 minutes of me just, like, hard tweaking, just, like, trying to, like, listen to music on my phone and, like, relax. And then we land. And once we land, I feel totally fine. I'm like, thank fucking God we're on the ground. I feel so much better. Being in that enclosed space was really rough, but we made it through. Should be good. It'll be a funny story to tell when I arrive. Right? So, I wait for my connecting flight. I get on the connecting flight. This one is on a much smaller plane, much like my my plane I took to Oregon, so it's more familiar territory. And this one is very chill. I don't get anxious at all on this one. And I get off, and I'm like, awesome. I get to go see my partner. I get to see my friends. This is dope. Now, the first thing that freaks me out a little bit is that it's a lot warmer than I thought it was going to be. I'm like very finicky when it comes to temperature. I do not do well in warm climates at all. I blame both my Scottish DNA and my big fat fuck body that makes it very hard for me to be in places that are really hot. And it was like 7 or 8 p.m. when I got there, because obviously West Coast to East Coast, so it was pretty late. So I was expecting it to be cool, and instead of being cool, it was unbelievably fucking warm relative to what I was expecting. So I was immediately like put off a little bit, and I was like, okay, that's a little bit stressful, but it's fine. I'll manage. And we go and get to my friend's house where we're going to be staying. Next level of stress is that I was expecting something totally different. I think what caused like this extreme difference in my expectations versus what actually happened is that I have a different friend who lives in that area, and I had seen them like on like a video call, like show where they live, basically. And so I had seen their neighborhood, and I saw what those kind of houses looked like, and I saw what that kind of area looked like. So I was like, okay, I have an idea of the place I'm going. And this place was so fucking not what I thought it was going to be. I said somewhat recently, I described it as a witch's hut, which is, it's not intended to be demeaning. I actually think the house is really cool, in retrospect, minus the basement that supposedly had black mold in it. That part wasn't as cool. But it was like a pretty big, but like pretty like desolate house. It was very dark. I wouldn't really say it was in a state of disrepair, but it was like an older house, and you could see that like because it had been lived in, there was like a little bit more wear and tear with like the wood and stuff. It wasn't like one of those like fucking like white plaster suburban houses that come like a dime a dozen, right? So it felt more lived in, which was a problem for me because pretty much every time I've ever traveled, I've realized now retrospectively this was one of the issues. Is that every time I've ever traveled, I've gone to like a hotel room, right? And I've stayed in a hotel room, which across the board all have a sort of generally similar vibe. They're all very standard boilerplate rooms. They all smell fairly similar. They've got fairly similar sheets. They've got the TV in the middle of the room. They've got the bathroom that's small and off to the side. You've got a very ubiquitous vibe for all of these hotel rooms. And going somewhere this far away and staying at like what very much felt like a person's house was super stressful. It felt really strange. And not to imply I did not trust this person at all, right? Like I fully trusted them. And I still would trust them today, even if I don't like them very much now. I would still trust them and trust their living space was safe. It was not anything of that sort. It was just like, this place is unfamiliar to me, and I'm really far away from home. And it's giving me an uncomfortable feeling, right? If that makes sense. So that was another thing. And then the last thing was just that, like, I was realizing, dude, I truly know nobody here. The two friends I was staying with, plus my partner, had all met each other before. They'd all known each other before they knew me, I believe. Two of them were actually exes, which was a whole different can of worms that I was stressed out about just because of personal insecurity and stuff. My bad on all of that. Just to be clear, there was some concerns for me that were unfounded, and it was another thing that stressed me out, I think, retrospectively. But you know. They all knew each other, is my point, right? So, like, they were all very comfortable around each other. One of them lived there, obviously. The other one was their partner who had visited there before. They had all traveled more than I had, minus my partner, who had never flown before. But they were flying a substantially shorter distance, more comparable to, like, California to Oregon than California to New York. But also, I just don't think they had as much travel anxiety as I did. I think it was just like more that they were just scared of being on a plane, which, fair. Those things are flying death traps. Do not blame them at all for that. In fact, I'd say they're probably correct to have that fear. So basically, I was just uncomfortable in just kind of like a general sense. Not like I distrusted anybody, not like I thought the area was like unsafe. I just was uneasy because it wasn't what I was expecting, right? Which is nobody's fault. It's just that I had expectations that were misaligned with the reality of the situation, which is something that now I've overcorrected on, which we'll get to. But I was there, and I was like, dude, I haven't fucking slept. I haven't eaten anything. I'm super hungry. Would you guys like to get some din din? And they're like, yes, we would love to get some din din. So we went to go get some sushi, because I love sushi, and they also like sushi quite a bit. And I was like, that sounds good as fuck. Let's go. And as we're driving, everything is super chill. No anxiety about being in the passenger seat. No anxiety about being with people I don't know or anything. No anxiety about like driving on a dark road, a road I don't know. All that, none of that's on my radar. It's all chill. Just holding hands with my partner, chilling in the back seat. All G, all G. Then we get to the restaurant. And I've mentioned that one of the big things I was scared of, especially because of that Disneyland trip, is that I was scared of going to eat at a restaurant because A, I'm obligated to stay there until everyone is finished. Why am I here? I need to go back. Um, Two, I have IBS and random things could totally fuck me over without warning. And three, I have had just very specific bad experiences with restaurants in the past, right? So there's precedent for this potentially causing a problem. And I still blame the fact that I literally said, "Let's hope I don't get anxious now." As soon as we enter the restaurant, what a terrible, what a fucking moron! Don't say that. Don't say that. All right. If you're like about to do something that could go wrong and you don't want it to go wrong, don't say that. Just chill. Just keep it to yourself. Don't jinx yourself like that. You absolute moron. So we went in and we sat down and we ordered, and a couple things happened. For anyone who doesn't have anxiety, or for even people who do have anxiety, because you might not have the same kind of anxiety as me, a lot of really small sensory stuff tends to get to me. Where I'm like looking at the pictures on this menu, and they're all like very brightly colored, very vivid, and there's like a lot of different like kinds of sushi like closely packed together visually, which stressed me out because it was like overstimulating. And they had like weird generic font, like Comic Sans or something. So I was like, oh geez, this restaurant made their own menu from scratch, which is, of course, not actually a problem. But in my panicked brain state, I'm like, well, if they make their own menu, maybe they couldn't afford to have a professional menu made, which means maybe they don't do their cleaning expectations because they're running on a low budget, which means, et cetera, et cetera. I've made it clear that my brain just fucking it gets out of control, just a slight bit, you know. So is that the best thing I have for rotted? That's so lame. Um, Basically, yeah, I was just starting to get freaked out a little bit. Also, the whole restaurant smelled like cleaner, which is also scary because I just like strong smells like that really like get to me. It's just like a very like big sensory overload. It's like I'm smelling too strong of a smell. Um, and then that plus the menu plus knowing I was about to be like eating raw fish, which might do something bad to my stomach, plus being with all these people who I was now trying to like make a good impression on, it was just a lot, and it really started to overwhelm me, and I started getting like kind of getting like a little bit of shaky, like my chest was getting cold, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick, I'll be right back. I took my sweatshirt off, tried to like take a second, like cool down. You're like, oh, maybe I'm too hot. It's pretty hot outside. Maybe I'm just overheated a little bit. Went back, still not feeling too great. Tried to eat a bite of sushi. Basically, my mouth immediately rejected it and just like maybe spit it back out. It was like my throat was closed up, basically. Just like, you're not eating food right now. Don't even fucking try. So I said, okay, you guys eat. I'm gonna go out. to the parking lot, and I'm gonna pace around a little bit, maybe call my family and just see if I can chill out. They're like, okay, hope you're all right. Let us know if you need anything. I just want to reemphasize it. They were all like perfect, perfect hosts, perfect friends during this whole debacle. Very supportive, very helpful. Entirely my fucking brain's fault that this shit happened. Not onus is not on them at all. Even though like I've like alluded to, like I'm not on good terms with these people anymore, but like, you know, they're fine people, and they were helpful as they feasibly could have been in the situation. So I go outside, I call my grandpa, I call my mom, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really freaking out. Do you think that all this anxiety could be caused just from like having just gone off a plane? And I think probably trying to salvage the situation, because it's like he's across the country, we can't have him freaking out. They were like, yeah, you know, totally could be the case. You know, you should just get back and you should get some sleep and see if the sleep helps. I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. It's a good idea. So everyone finishes their sushi. We head back to the house. I try and get some rest. This is such a silly detail, but I mean, I really think it helps emphasize just like how strange anxiety can be a lot of the time, where it's like that really like confused you or it really like freaked you out. My partner used one of those sleep mask things that you put over your eyes, and I was like, that's not something I expected that they would do. And it, again, just another like subverted expectation that just like was another layer of like, oh my god, I really misjudged this whole situation. I really am in over my head because my partner's wearing a sleep mask. You know, anxiety is many things, but it's rarely rational. But that was just another level. And then we were on like a small, or not a small, we were on like a single mattress, not like on like a full bed. So I was like, we were like close to the ground, and that was somehow stressful to me, of course, as well. We were using like more blankets than I was used to, yet another level of stress, etc., etc. Like more very small things stacking up that shouldn't have been a problem at all, but were somehow in my head, you know, causing a lot of problems. So I go to sleep, I wake up. It's like 6 in the morning, which is actually like a fairly decent amount of sleep because I went to bed very early, because I was like, basically as soon as you finish eating, I was like, I have to try and sleep or I'm going to fucking die. I also took a shower, which was nice. Cleanse my debuffs, as I like to say, from fucking being on a plane and feeling disgusting and terrible, you know? So I woke up, and I feel like when you, at least in my experience as someone who's dealt with a lot of anxiety and a lot of sickness, when you wake up, there's like a very brief period where your body hasn't adjusted to like waking up yet, where like your brain hasn't remembered that it needs to like convey stimuli rather to your like body, to like make sure that like, oh, if something bad's happening, you're gonna be in danger. So, oh, I forgot, you're supposed to feel pain. If you have pain, here's the pain coming back now. So it's like a brief period where you're like immune to like anxiety and shit. And it's anyone's fucking guess like how you're gonna feel after like a good like 45 seconds or so of being awake. So I woke up and I felt fine, and I thought, oh, thank God, the trip is not ruined. I feel okay. And then the anxiety started to come back immediately. So I was like, fuck, I don't want to wake my partner up. I'm just gonna go to the bathroom. And I called my uncle. Thank goodness for him choosing to pick up his phone at 3 a.m. and answer me. And I sort of talked to him about the stress I was feeling, and I sort of talked to him about the anxiety I was having. And, you know, he didn't make me, like, feel, like, better about the situation, because he couldn't have. It wasn't something that, like, a person would have been able to do at that point. I was, like, too fucked up, right? But, you know, it was nice to talk to someone familiar. It was nice to, like, have a candid conversation about it and get to, like, air out some of my feelings. And he basically said, hey, if you think you need to come back, let me or your grandpa know, and we'll figure out how to get you back, right? Because my grandpa was a travel agent. He set the whole trip up for me, you know, so there was basically like he was like the go-to if something was like wrong with the trip this whole time, basically, which is why he was the first person I called earlier. Um, so I go back and try and sleep a little more. Still feeling terrible. Can't even fall asleep now. Go back into the bathroom. And basically for like 45 minutes, I just sit under like the warm shower head. Warm water has always been something that's helped me kind of like calm down, like even out my anxiety, even out my nausea. So it was nice to just kind of be able to like chill under there. But like the second that like I turned the water off, I would like start to feel terrible again. So I could only be in there for so long. And it got to a point where I realized like this is like more severe than like just like a brief anxious episode. Like this is like bad. I'm too far from home. Too many things have been fucked up already. It's like this is not a situation that I'm going to be able to like ride out and feel fine, right? And that wasn't a decision I made lightly because I'd come all this way. My friend had spent like $600 on a plane ticket getting me here. My partner was expecting to be able to see me for a very long time. And my partner had their own issues with, like, you know, abandonment and attachment. I have a lot of the same issues. Similar, but, similar situation. Not quite the same, but, I'm trying to be vague. Not because it's like, oh, protect the identity. Because it's like, everyone who knows me knows who I'm talking about. Anyone who doesn't know me doesn't know who I'm talking about, and they couldn't possibly. It's just like, just being vague to be, like, respectful and not just, like, air out, like, every detail, you know? Just being vague where I can, just for the sake of being respectful. But am I even going the right way? Basically, I just had to bite the bullet and say, yeah, it's fucking doomed. Go next. And so I told everyone. It was very upsetting. They were like, why don't you just try a little bit longer? Why don't you try a little bit longer? And I'm like, I need you to understand that, like, this is so terrible. If I stay here any longer, I'm, like, gonna fully melt down. It's, like, so unbelievably stressful. And it's hard to, like, tell and explain that, like, level of anxiety to someone who hasn't felt that before. It's, like, truly one of the scariest things in the world. It's, like, so terrifying. Because it's like, your whole body is cold. Well, it's different for everyone. So take it with a grain of salt. But for me, it was like, whole body is cold. Million thoughts a minute fucking racing through my head. Super stressed out. Thinking I'm going to die. Thinking something terrible is going to happen. Thinking the anxiety is going to get worse and I'm going to have a breakdown. Being so far from everyone and everything I know, etc., etc. Just a million things happening that are just like, this is not something that can be fixed right now. Like, the fix, the solution is me going home, right? And that was not a decision I made lightly. It was something I thought about for, like, a good fucking couple hours, like, agonizing over it. Like, is this really the choice I'm about to make? Because there's, like, there's no going back from this, right? Like, I'm not dipping back for a couple days and coming back cross-country to try again. Like, this trip is done for me if I leave. So, I tell everyone that. I'm gonna go. I'll get my grandpa to book me a ticket out, take me to the airport. I was weirdly low stress for most of the return trip. I think it was probably just because I, like, knew I was coming home. And that's kind of been a consistent thing with my anxiety as well recently, is that, like, once I know I'm, like, on the way to, like, the safe location, I stop being as stressed. And the anxiety kind of, like, fades a little bit. So, it was the same in this circumstance as well, right? So, basically, I headed back. Took the connecting flights, headed through the airport, did it all just okay on my own. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I'm still fairly proud of myself for that, being able to, like, get through that, make the call that it's like, for the sake of my mental health and the sake of my safety, I need to leave. As much as I don't want to, I have to do this. And then I got back home, basically on my own. My grandpa, like, gave me, like, some basic advice, like, here's where you go, here's what you do, etc. And told me, like, send me the ticket. But, like, I made my way to the airport. I was okay on the plane. I didn't have to, like, call anyone for, like, guidance or assurance. I just made my way through. And I made it home. And immediately got COVID for, like, a week. And just felt terrible. So, not a great week there. But yeah, I got home. I was really, really worried that like it was going to impact my relationship with my partner. And I talked to a couple of my friends about it. I talked to them about it, and my partner was very standoffish and was very like not wanting to talk. Which of course totally understandable. Where it's like this is an extreme bummer to put it lightly, right? So wanting to just focus on the people who are around you and just chill with them and do that kind of thing. Super understandable. Do not blame them for a second for kind of prioritizing that. Yeah, not something I hold against them for any reason. So, long story short, that did lead to the end of the relationship for a couple reasons. Some of which were just the result of misunderstandings that kind of cropped up, and then some of which were a result of just interpersonal issues that sort of ended up being insurmountable. Relationships end for a lot of reasons. This one ended for a lot of reasons. It's not terribly important. Just the result was that there was a massive interpersonal conflict between me and my partner and several of our friends. They're then partners by that point, and basically from that point on, I was just doing very badly for a while. At that point, like travel anxiety or agoraphobia, like wasn't even on my radar. It was just my life is over because this person I was in love with is no longer in my life. Which is irrational anxiety in its own way, right? Because it's like, oh, my life is over. I'm 21 and my fucking boyfriend broke up with me. Oh no, I'm cooked. And it's like, clearly you're not, right? Like you think about it for 2 seconds, it's like, yeah, I'll be fine eventually. But it's like you don't feel like you're gonna be fine, and it's okay to like acknowledge that. But I made it through that. Lost a couple people who were very important to me along the way, um, and landed on my 2 feet. Not the most worse for the wear. Now the thing about this is that as I started to feel normal again, and as I started going
Let
out
me
to
think.
do things again,
Let me think.
issues began to crop up where I had had this cataclysmically horrible experience that was ultimately a result of being too far away from a place where I was comfortable, right? And I'm sure you can see where this is going. Because I had a really bad moment where I was too far from my comfort zone, and I freaked the fuck out, and my brain didn't like it, and I had to come back. And so then, every single time I was somewhere that was marginally far from home, and I was like locked into a specific amount of time before I could go back, my brain immediately said, hey, don't do this. You should leave. And I don't know if you've had your brain do that before, but uh, it can be pretty pushy when it wants you to do something like that. It can be pretty forward about it. So that was when I really started to struggle with agoraphobia. Was anytime I wanted to go out with friends, anytime I wanted to go out with family, anytime I was thinking about maybe applying for a job somewhere, anytime I wanted to do something outside of the house, there was always a base level of anxiety that came with it. There was always a base level of this could go very, very badly. And the confusing thing, it's still confusing now, is that the severity just varies wildly. And it feels like there's not really a pattern to it a lot of the time, which is part of the difficult thing for me. Is that like if there was a more consistent pattern, I'd feel like I have a better handle on approaching it. But sometimes it's mostly fine. sometimes it's terrifying, right? Like, one thing that I determined that I was pretty much able to do on my own is I had determined that I was, for the most part, able to go do things by myself, which is like the opposite of how most people with agoraphobia are. But my main thing was like, I was afraid of like being out of control of a situation, or I should say, my main thing is, because that's still the main problem I have, is that it's like, if I'm with somebody and they're expecting me to like stay for the duration, or they're relying on me to stay for the duration of the thing, or let's say I'm getting a ride somewhere, so I'm not in like full control of the direction we're going in. That's another thing that could be really stressful. If I'm in the car and I'm driving and I'm going somewhere I want to go specifically, and if I want to, I can turn around immediately and leave, and nobody will be worse off for it. That is totally fine. Like, I want to go get some In and Out because I'm hungry, and nobody else is coming with me, and nobody else is relying on me to get there, and I have full control. All good. Not an issue in the slightest. No anxiety. Sometimes I would get anxiety if like I was in the drive-through for a little longer than I wanted to be, because it's like, well, there's cars in front of me, cars behind me. I have to wait for them to get their food in order to leave. That was excuse me, big yawn. Um that would sometimes be problematic because it's like, hey, I'm uh I'm out of control of the situation for like 5 minutes, right? But which is just not that one. Usually I was able to get a handle on pretty quick and be like, hey, you'll be done with this soon. You don't need to tweak the fuck out. Just chill, right? But even then, sometimes I thought about it too hard. I would like genuinely like start panicking. Just like sitting there, I was just like, okay, gotta breathe, gotta breathe, gotta breathe, and then I would make it through, obviously, because I'm still here. But there's yeah, there's uh, there's a lot of things that would stress me out, and it's been something I've been struggling with a lot recently because the first thing that any person with agoraphobia will tell you, in my experience, all the people that I've like watched videos from, the people I've read things from, is that people with agoraphobia want to do the things that scare them, right? It's like me, Carter. I want to go out with my friends and get dinner. I want to go to like Target and like buy something. I want to travel and leave the city and see new places. But the problem is that even though you rationally want to go do that, the poison of past experiences gone wrong, and like the promise of further anxiety and further fear just like completely fucking ruins you. It People always talk about mind over matter, and like that's true, right? It's like, the way you get over agoraphobia is exposure therapy. The way you get over your anxiety is confronting it and figuring out what makes you anxious and choosing to think differently, right? Like all these mental problems, except for the ones that like require medicine, right? But like most of these mental problems, like the primary thing that you do to treat it is changing the way you think. Obviously, easier said than done, but like it's just one of those situations where like it's like, yeah, I know I'm supposed to change the way I think, but it doesn't feel like that does anything. It's like I can go into the situation knowing that it's like all of the danger is in my head, but my body still fucking turns cold, and I still start shaking, and I still start freaking out and thinking I'm gonna die. It's like that physical response is very real. And even if like nothing bad is gonna happen, right? It's like I'm thinking like I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up right out of the window right now, and I'm gonna crash the car. I have to leave. 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 Like these things are still like happening in my head. It's just this like it's just this disconnect where it's like you have to fight yourself constantly at every turn. And even when you succeed, it doesn't feel like a win. It's like it feels less like a victory and more like finishing like a 10-hour graveyard shift and being like, well, now I'm done. Great, I guess. I still feel terrible, and that wasn't good at all. And you know, the goal is like, eventually, I know the goal eventually is to be like, oh, you keep doing this incrementally and incrementally, and eventually you've desensitized yourself to these situations, and you can go and do them normally and enjoy them. But it's like, do you know how hard it is to go pick up like 4 of your friends to go get dinner because you want to hang out with your friends and see them, and you want to be a good friend and pick them up, and then you get them and you start heading down the road to like take them to dinner, and you just, your whole body just turns to ice, and everything in your body is screaming that you are in immense, immediate danger. Like, and then you're just supposed to pretend it's not happening? You're just supposed to be like, nope, not today, anxiety. Nope, 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 nope. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's possible, of course. People have gotten over agoraphobia before. It's, like, not something that is impossible, but it's like, I don't know. It's just really disheartening. And it's not even just disheartening because of my own experiences. It's like, when I read about people who have agoraphobia, they're like, you know, yeah, the anxiety never really goes away. It's like, you know, I manage to keep it under control most of the time so I can function in basic level, but, you know, I still like to travel, but, you know, I have to center my breathing, you know, every hour just to make sure I don't freak out too much. Plane rides are really difficult. I'm always, you know, doing my anxiety treatment, my anxiety, you know, control. And it's like, so you're telling me my best case scenario is that I'm barely holding on and technically have it handled, but I never get to just like be the same level of just like functional I was ever again? Like, that's unattainable for me now? It's like, every person is different, right? So like, maybe I'm making a bigger deal out of it than it is, and like, you know, with like maybe like a few months, even a few months more of exposure therapy, maybe I'll be totally fine. But like, it's impossible to know, and there's so many things that feel stacked against me. I've had so many negative experiences. It's like, and things that are supposed to be like wins are the things that you should, like, a person should be reasonably expected to do. So you feel like a fucking moron when you're like, okay, cool, I picked up 2 people, I went and got dinner, and then I ate the dinner, and I didn't get sick the whole time, and I felt okay. It's like, wow, good fucking job. You did like one of the most basic things a person can do. Or it's like, oh, you know, I went out and got dinner with my family and it went okay. Or, oh, I went shopping with my family, it went okay. It's like, wow, good fucking job, bro. You are like fucking tier 0 functional. It's like, that comes with your basic code. There's no effort involved there. And it's like, well, my fucking brain is so shit, I guess that's actually an accomplishment now. I guess it's actually a big deal when I manage to do that. It's just so... God. It just feels fucking terrible. And of course, nothing actually gets better, right? Like, you do the exposure therapy, and then you keep doing the exposure therapy, and you keep feeling horrible the whole time. Like, you don't, like, suddenly start, like, oh, wow, I'm feeling really good. It's like, you still feel awful the vast majority of the time. And you just have to hold faith that eventually it'll start working. And it's like, oh, well, you know, the only way to get better is to keep doing it over and over again. It's like, well, the only way to keep being bad is to keep doing it over and over again, too, so... Why don't I just cut out the middleman and just stay home the whole time? It feels really difficult not to be just, like, completely negative, completely defeatist about it. Because it's just so... It destroys your life. It's like, I can't go anywhere, man. It's like, sometimes I can, but it's like a toss-up, and the whole time, all I'm thinking about is, what if I have to leave? What if I start getting sick? What if something bad happens and I have to go? What if I'm too anxious to do this thing? And, you know, it started to leak into, like, not just my life outside of my house, but my life in my house. For, like, the past, like, 3 days, I've been, like, a base level of anxious and nauseous. Like, multiple times I've had to stop talking during this video because I get too worried. It's like, oh, if I talk too long, if I keep my mouth open, I'll start, like, gagging and I'll throw up. It's like, what are you talking about? What does that mean? You're gonna talk too long, start gagging, and throw up. But lo and behold, the anxiety makes me start gagging, and so then it's like, oh well, the anxiety is actually doing this to me, so it's justified now. My fear is now justified. My anxiety justifies itself. It's like my brain, like I said, I'm like in a constant war against myself. It's like, how am I supposed to beat my brain with my brain? It's like, who wins? Probably my brain. But I don't know. It's just, if it sounds like my thoughts are scattered, it's because they are. It's because I've been so worried about all this, and I've been so stressed about all this, that all of these thoughts have just like blended, and it's just this like disgusting, terrible, unpalatable soup of just a bunch of fucking bullshit. And I know there's only so much that I can expect to get done in like a short amount of time. Because my agoraphobia has really only been like super bad for like a few months now. It's gotten like substantially worse over time to the point where it's like I don't know if I can go anywhere. But you know, I don't know. I know I need to give it more time, and I'm obviously going to. Because I have to. The alternative is killing myself, right? And as appealing as that is a lot of days, frankly, the idea of just fucking finally being done with all this bullshit, like, that's not the right solution. Just kind of definitively, it's not correct. And also, the people who I hate win if I kill myself, so... Spite, my old reliable, keeping me kicking. So I don't know. That's one thing I've been dealing with. The agoraphobia is the primary thing that I've been struggling with. But then also just like the baseline anxiety has been bad. Like I mentioned, like I'll be at home, like trying to like eat food, and I'll be like, well, what if this makes you sick? It's like, well, that's fine because I'm literally like right next to my bathroom, like in my room, right next to my bathroom. It's like, well, what if you don't make it to the bathroom in time, you puke all over your keyboard? What if you make it in there and then you're nauseous for like 2 hours and you can't vomit, you just feel terrible? It's like my brain will always find like a justification to be anxious. And you know, I've been doing my best to just pretend the voice isn't there because that's what you're supposed to do. It's like, okay, I hear you, but I'm gonna eat my food. I'll eat it slow to make sure I don't puke it up, you know, to make sure I don't get sick. I'll be careful about it, but I'm going to eat it. I'm not gonna allow myself to limit my actions because of this, which is again is what you're supposed to do. But it's so much effort to accomplish nothing. It's like so much effort just to like be a person who's alive. And it's really, really frustrating. Especially when one of my friends is like, hey, anyone want to go out for dinner tonight? And it's like, I'd love to, but I'll probably like fucking explode. So I can't. And then of course they go out to dinner because why wouldn't they go out to dinner? They're all functional, they can all do that, and then they do it and they have a good time, and I'm just sitting at home like a fucking sad sack. And it sucks. And again, I know all this is very scattered, and I know all of this is difficult to follow. But, I mean, welcome to my fucking world. It's not exactly, fucking super easy for me to keep track of all this shit either. But yeah, the agoraphobia is the primary thing. The base level anxiety is getting worse recently. Just too anxious to eat a lot of the time. Sometimes I'll lie down to sleep and I'll be like, well, I'm wrapped up in the blankets right now. What if I get super sick and I don't have time to like get out and go to the bathroom and I fucking puke immediately? Sometimes I have to take my brother and sister to school in the car. I'll get stressed out doing that because it's like, it's such a short distance, it's like a 5-minute drive, but it's like, oh, well, if something bad happens and I vomit and I crash the car, then my brother and sister are dead. It's like, there's so many things that my brain is worried about all the time that are so obviously not going to happen, but it's just like, they take up so much of my mental energy anyways. It's just, it's really something. I'm trying to think of other things that just like have been bothering me recently. I also just have like I don't know if I'm like fully like a hypochondriac, but I have like some hypochondriac tendencies. Um, I've struggled a lot with like dental health my whole life. I have a really hard time remembering to brush my teeth. I have a really hard time remembering to do my like disinfectant rinse and stuff. I do my best. I swish with water. I floss. Weirdly, I probably floss more than I brush my teeth, which is strange, but I do my best. But I'm always worried that I have bad breath. I brush my tongue every time I brush my teeth to make sure I don't have any bad stink on there. But I'm always worried like, oh, there's some gunk on the back of my tongue that I can't reach. If I try and reach back there, it's gonna make me gag, so I'm not gonna be able to get rid of it. My breath is always gonna smell terrible, and people are gonna think I'm disgusting, etc., etc. Then also just in the more practical side, I've for a long time I've had like a small little notch on one of my back molars that I mean, presumably it must just be a cavity, but it's pretty small. And I remember one of my doctors or my dentist telling me, like, you have a couple of very small cavities, but as long as you try to do a good job brushing, you can either revert them and they'll, like, fix themselves, or you'll, be able to kind of ignore them and they won't cause a problem. But, that tooth hurts every so often. I don't think it's a big enough problem that I need to be super worried about it. It's not like fucking aching with agony. But my jaw is super sore all the time, both sides of my jaw. I don't know if it's just because my jaw gets sore. It's entirely possible that it's just my jaw gets sore. I have acid reflux. I don't know if that causes it. I might also grind my teeth in my sleep. I have some weird thing where there's like bubbles under my gums, and dentist asked me, it's like, oh, do you gnash your teeth, do you grind your teeth? And I said, no, I don't do that. They say, well, you have the telltale sign of doing that. It's like, okay, well, I don't do it, so am I doing it during my sleep? She's like, yeah, it's possible. So that's also totally a plausible reason that my jaw hurts, but hey, maybe it's because I have fucking pus in my jaw, and I have a million cavities. Maybe I'm gonna have to get dentures, and all my teeth are gonna be gone. Maybe I'm gonna have to get another root canal, and my family's gonna get super mad because I had spent all the money on a root canal, just so many things I'm always worried about. It's like, oh, you're a big fat fuck and you have IBS and you're nauseous all the time. If you ate better, maybe you'd feel fine. It's like, oh, well, try eating better for a little bit. Well, you fall back into your old habits. Oh, you're probably gonna die early. It's like there's so many things that I'm always worried about all the time. And there's not enough room in a person's head for this much shit, man. It's like you can only be reasonably expected to deal with so much as a one person. But, you kind of have to deal with what you have to deal with. Again, your other choice is killing yourself, which is not preferable. So, you do what you can, right? And what I can do is push my limits every so often, try not to get too frustrated with how slow progress is. Um, Another thing is just like, I don't even know if I'd classify this as anxiety exactly, but one thing that I've been having a problem with recently is like kind of like FOMO, fear of missing out, where it's like one thing I always looked forward to, like as a kid or like as a high schooler, was I really like I had this very idealized picture of like campus life in my head, or I get to go to be in a university.
Anyways,
I have a dorm with all these cool roommates. I get to go out and do stuff at night. I get to be on campus, sit in the coffee shop, do my homework, go to all the lectures, learn stuff. Maybe get a fucking hot goth art ho GF epic win, etc. Like I had all these ideas in my head of like what it would be like to go to college, and instead I went to async community college for 2 years, which was like probably a good move because it was free, and you know I saved a lot of money doing it, and then I transferred to university for 2 years. Which, by the way, was also a good move because I slacked off like fucking crazy in high school, and I definitely didn't have a high enough GPA to get into that university right away. But I was able to make a transfer agreement because I went to community college, and so I was guaranteed acceptance into the university for those last 2 years. So now I have like a third of the debt and the same degree. So that was like objectively the correct move from like a fucking practical standpoint, right? But at the same time, I didn't get a college experience really. I went to campus for those last 2 years, but I basically only went either by myself or with a friend, a singular friend. Didn't really meet anybody, didn't really participate in any campus stuff, certainly didn't live in a dorm. I've lived with my parents forever. So, and it's not like I'm going to get another chance to do that. I don't get to do that again. Like, I can go to grad school, but grad school's not the same. Half the people in grad school are like fully grown fucking adults who have a job and a house and they're furthering their career. Like, grad school is not the same as going to like college and like living in a dorm and doing all that shit. And I know that like it sounds better in my head than it probably would be for real, right? Like I recognize that. I recognize that like there would be downsides to going to college. Like for example, the insane amount of debt I would have as opposed to how much debt I have now. Like it would be hard to be away from my family. I have to meet a bunch of new people. I have to live in very close quarters with people who I might not mesh with well, right? Like, lack of personal space. A lot of difficulty dealing with, like, interpersonal issues without, like, my core friend group, like, readily accessible. Like, there would be issues. I don't make the mistake of me, like, putting up the college experience on a pedestal, like, fully. Like, it's something I'm deeply disappointed I missed out on, and it'll probably haunt me for the rest of my life. And at this point, I'm kind of just hoping that, like, heaven is like you get to live all your fantasies out and have an awesome time. Which, first of all, first fantasy, a bunch of hot fat women. If you know, you know. Second fantasy is just be a fucking college student, probably. Or, like, be a cool fucking badass knight or something. Or, like, a cool hero with, like, a mechanical replacement prosthetic arm who fucking lives in a cyberpunk world and is cool. That'd also be up there. But like yeah, like that ship has sailed. For better or for worse, that ship has sailed and I don't get to fucking do that ever. And, you know, in terms of longevity for my life, that's probably a totally fine thing. I don't think I've like fucked my chances of having a good life by not doing that. Again, if anything, it's probably good overall for my career and for my life. But it's just an experience I can't have. And I think that ties back into the anxiety, you know, because that's another instance of me not having control. Is like, if I want to live on campus and I want to have that cool campus experience, the best I can do is like watch a show about it, man. Like, I can't do that. And that sucks. And you know, that's another part of dealing with anxiety is, you know, learning like, hey, there's certain things that you just can't control, there's certain things that you're not going to be able to do anything about, and you've got to be okay with that. And I'm trying to be. If I make it out to sound like I'm like completely distraught about not going to college, it's like sometimes I'll think about it and it'll upset me. It's not like I'm every day crying my eyes out because I didn't get to fucking do my homework at Starbucks and fucking support the union-busting, Palestine-hating freaks. Like, I'm not... I have reasonable, like, feelings about it, right? Where it's like, this is one of the few, like, things that I think about often that isn't, like, taking up way too much of my, like, mental faculties. I have, like, a reasonable amount of, like, sadness and anxiety over missing out on this experience. But then there's other stuff where it's like, I'll never get to know what my life with that old partner would have been like, because I chose to go home. Maybe if I stayed, it would have gone better. And, you know, people talk all the time about how it's like, oh, like, worrying about what could have been is, like, the worst thing you can do, because it could have been, it can't ever be, you know. It's a waste of your time, it's a waste of your energy, but, you know, it's hard not to think about that stuff. It's hard not to think about how your life could have been different. And it's even more difficult when you realize that you're happy that some of those things happened. Like, I'm very glad that my relationship with that person ended because, you know, there's people in my life who I care about a lot more. Maybe something will fucking change with the people who I've lost in my life. Probably not, you know, probably those ships have sailed, but I don't want that person to be my partner anymore. I'm very happy with the current situation I'm in, romance-wise. I'm okay with that. But there's still a kind of like melancholic acceptance to that, right? Where it's like, even if I'm happy with where things are, it's out of my control. And that's like another level of stress. I don't know. I feel like we've officially reached the part where I'm just like saying shit and I don't know if it's even making sense anymore, but like basically my point is just that I'm like a fucking grade A tweaker and I'm anxious about everything all the time. If I could describe like my big issue in like one way, that would probably be how I do it. Is that I'm just like anxious about everything, or I'm scared of everything all the time. It's like I'm terrified to go to sleep because I might get anxious. I'm terrified to go out because I might get anxious. I'm terrified to make any choices in life because what if I regret them? It's like it feels like I'm like stuck, like I'm like afraid to move forward. But you know, for better or for worse, I am moving forward. Like, I just got my bachelor's degree. Like, that's done. Like, I've completed that. So I have that now. I'm in an in-between phase right now where I try and decide what I want to do for work, what I want to do in regards to grad school, when I'm going to move out and be on my own, you know. There's things to figure out now, but like I'm not stuck, which should be a good thing, but instead it stresses me out, where it's like, we're continuing to move forward, time marches on, despite the fact that I'm fucking freaking out all the time. And somehow that makes it worse. Like, that should be good, right? Shouldn't that be good for my anxiety, where it's like, hey, as scared as you are of, like, the whole world fucking ending, it's not. You're continuing to do shit. Not only is the world moving on, but you're moving on. You're still doing stuff. But instead, all it does is fucking scare me and freak me out and make me want to curl into a ball and die. Like, I don't know. I don't know. You know, things are difficult. I've got a lot of problems, not a lot of insight into them, I don't think. Things are hard. And then, of course, there's just, like, the regular, like, things I'm anxious about, like a normal amount. And those are, like... It's like, how could I possibly find the time to be anxious about these things when, like, I also fucking can barely leave my house? It's like, well, I want to be a novelist, but what if my writing isn't actually good enough? What if I try and publish something and people say it's bad? Or it's like, what if I try and, like, pitch this and they're like, oh, well, it's not as good as you think it is? It's like, what if all of you what if you think you have plenty of talent? What if you think you worked hard, but it's not going to work out? It's like these bigger things that, like, I should be able to devote my time to thinking about and, like, reasoning through and being like, hey, let's think about this and let's grow and change and decide how we want to confront these insecurities. It's like, I have no time for that because I'm trying to, like, my current battle is fucking going to get dinner. You know? It feels difficult to compartmentalize stuff like that. And even if I do compartmentalize stuff like that, a lot of the time it's just like, what's the fucking point, man? Like, what's the point in convincing myself not to worry about all this shit at once? Because I'm going to anyway. Like, we can talk exposure therapy this, we can talk desensitivation that, we can talk about mind over matter, we can talk about cognitive therapy, we can talk about new meds, all this shit, but it's like, is it really gonna help? Maybe. It's just really difficult to be positive these days. There's very few things in my life that I'm like jazzed about. Dude, like you know you're cooked when the highlight of your day is like participating in like fucking like a fetish role play. You know that's how you're fucking cooked. And you know you're cooked when like all of your effort goes into something like that too. It's like up to like 83,000 words now. It's like you couldn't fucking put that into like your novel that you were trying to write, or you couldn't put that into like a job search, or you couldn't put that time into even just like trying to like leave the house and practice. Like no, I just did on some random bullshit. Sorry. My mistake. Should have spent the time better, but I didn't. Sucks to suck. And then you have like again those like bigger things that you should be able to focus time on. It's like, oh, I don't like my body. It's like we are so that is so not on the docket right now. It's like, oh, I'm a fat bastard and I wish I wasn't. My skin is bad and I wish I could deal with my stretch marks and my like all the blemishes on my chest. Cool. Talk to me when you can fucking go get dinner with your friends without losing your mind. Talk to me when you can like go on a vacation to the place you want to go to without losing your mind. Like I have to sideline all of these like big problems I have because I have bigger problems. And the worst part is I don't actually have any problems. Like definitive real problems that could cause an issue for me in my life, I don't really have any of them. So I feel like a jackass complaining about all this stuff. And it's like I live with my parents for free. They feed me every day. They don't complain about me playing games all day. They help me out when I need something. They drive me places when I need to go somewhere. They're trying to help me find a job. They're letting me stay. They paid half my debt. They did like a special school thing where they paid for half my debt and I only have half the debt now. It's like chopped my debt in half again. Like, I have plenty of great friends who appreciate me and spend time with me. Like, I have a degree. I'm smart. I'm competent. Like, I should be riding high, and I should be like I'm a white dude. I'm like a cis straight passing white dude. Like, I should be having like a fucking whale of a time, and instead I'm just completely fucking miserable. And of course people can say all they want, like, oh, you know, you shouldn't compare yourself to other people's happiness, or you shouldn't compare yourself to other people's anxiety. You know, you should just take care of yourself. You should just be yourself, and you know, just don't compare yourself to other people. It's not a contest to see who's the most miserable. You know, it's like I know it's not, but like, doesn't it just feel bad to like complain about your problems when you know other people have it so much worse? And it's like, well, my problem is just like my fucking brain hates me, but your problem is that you can't pay rent. Or your problem is that your fucking, like, dad hits you, or whatever. I don't know. Weird examples, but you get what I mean, right? Where it's like, there are these concrete difficulties that cause serious issues for people that impact their life on a large scale. And I don't have any of those. Instead, I'm just like, my brain's broken. And like, those will cause like big problems later if I don't take care of them, right? But like, I have the perfect opportunity to take care of them. I live with my family and have no real like big dedications I need to worry about right now. I have time to focus on myself and focus on fixing things. It's just, I just don't, because it's easier not to. I mean, I say that, but I could be doing more, but I'm still trying, you know? Like, I'm going places, I'm trying to, like, make sure I practice getting out there. When my anxiety tells me not to eat, I try and eat anyway. Tells me not to drive, I drive anyway, you know? I'm making an effort. I don't want to make it seem like I'm totally fucking off and doing nothing. But it just feels shitty complaining about anything when I know I'm this privileged, when I know my problems could be like 1,000 fucking times worse, like, to an unbelievable degree. It's like, People could be committing genocide against my people right now and fucking bombing hospitals and killing children. And then getting the fucking American government to back them up. But that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. But you get my point, where it's like, things could be so much worse than they are. And yet, I continue to consistently have such a shitty time of it. Or at the very least, I'm perceiving myself to have a shitty time of it. Again, like, the reality of the situation is that I'm actually doing fine, like, life-wise. But that, like, scares me for that reason, too, where it's like, well, what's gonna happen when I suddenly am not doing fine, but, like, I'm still having all these problems? Like, then I'll actually be totally fucked. I don't know. I've been saying that a lot, but it's because I don't know. I just have a lot of difficulties. I have a lot of things I'm scared of, a lot of things I'm always worried about, and it can feel incredibly difficult trying to, like, find the right way to think about it, if that makes sense. Because, like, the quote-unquote right way to think about it is still, like, oh, learning mindset, growth mindset, you know, always be trying to improve, always be trying to, like, you know, do the exposure therapy, always be thinking positive thoughts, always be working on making sure that you've got the right mindset in mind, you know, be grateful for what you have, etc., 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 all the fucking therapist mantras you've heard. And then, of course, it's like, oh, try and find a job and pay off your debt, you know, hone your skills, appreciate the people around you. Like, you know all the things you're supposed to be doing. It's just like, how am I supposed to do that when I'm just like, I guess I just have a lot of existential issues that, like, kind of take up a lot of my fucking mental faculties. It feels very all-consuming, I would say. Like, the way I've described it, I think, kind of emphasizes that, where it's like, I'm afraid of everything is how I consider things. Where it's like, I'm anxious about everything. It's like, everything is not true. Like, I'm not anxious about, like, fucking a meteor falling from the sky and killing us all, right? Like, that's even too outlandish for me. But I am anxious about, like, the concept of outer space. Like, looking up into the sky and knowing how far it goes up is terrifying to me sometimes. Dude, that's another thing. Sometimes I'll just think about shit, or I'll see shit, and it'll, like, freak me the fuck out. Like, I'll be watching a show, and I'll see someone sitting in the backseat of a car, and I'm like, dude, how can he do that without getting scared? How can he sit in that car without getting freaked the fuck out? Because he's locked in that car. Dude, I'm making myself feel sick thinking about it right now. Like, I'm, like, gagging thinking about it. It's tough. And that's, like, what I think about when I, like, watch shows now, too. It's like, I don't think about the themes as much, I don't think about the characters as much, I don't, like, think about the plot as much, or the action as much. Instead, I think about, man, I wish I could do those things. Man, I wish I could go to a restaurant. Man, I wish I could go to the park. Man, I wish I could go to the zoo. Etc., etc. That's all I think about now. It's just, like, what I can't do, and why other people can do it. And why that's fucking fair. I don't know. It's sad, it's stressful, it's a lot. But you know, I'm trying. I'm doing my best. That was one of the things I really wanted to mention that's just super stressful. It's just like, all the time being reminded of things I can't do. Like, can't sit in a fucking backseat of a car, man. That's what scares you. Dude, get a fucking grip. Like, we're so far past, like, being afraid of a plane. That was, I don't remember, that was the first thing we talked about, really, was, like, being afraid of a plane. Being afraid of going on the plane, or, like, being afraid of, like, traveling 7 hours to Disneyland by car. Now it's just, I can't be in the backseat of a car or I'll die. You know? I just hope I get there one day. I think that's one of the hardest things about it, is just having no guarantee that it'll work. It's like, oh, this is the method. This is like what you're supposed to do, right? And then you read stories about people who are still this anxious and still agoraphobic this fucking far into their lives. It's like, well, if I knew that things would get better, if I just did my best, it would feel a lot less difficult, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. It would be a lot less difficult if I just, like, knew for certain that, like, if I do this for long enough, I will get better. It's like, you know, maybe you fucking won't. Maybe you'll be fucked forever. Here's the unlucky sap whose brain broke when he was in fucking... when he was 21. Right when his life was supposed to be getting started, he was completely fucked forever. Great. But hey, we'll see, I guess, right? I'm gonna keep trying. I'm sure I won't be perfect. I'm sure there'll be times when I know rationally I should go out and do something and then I don't. Either because I just don't want to or because it's too scary. There's just plenty of things that I just wish I could be, I don't know. I feel like I've run out of notable things to say. Like, there's more things that stress me out that I could talk about, and there's more things that give me anxiety that I could talk about, but... like, what would be the point, really? Like, we've kind of gotten to the crux of it, right? It's like lack of control, existential anxiety, not really having a guarantee about anything, having to just keep trying and hoping it works, fear of missing out to like a pretty brutal degree, etc., etc. But hey, I'm still here. Even if sometimes I wish I wasn't, I am still here. Gonna take more than that to get rid of me. Maybe not much more, but at least a little more, you know? I can't go out that easy. Well, I don't know. I can't think of anything else I want to say. You know, if you're a buddy of mine who decided to watch this whole video through, appreciate you. Feel free to ask me questions if you want to. Clearly I don't mind talking about it, because I've been fucking yapping about it for a while. But, if you're a random person, also, who just happened to find this video, either because it's Monster Hunter, or because you are agoraphobic, or because you have anxiety, or whatever, you know, feel free to ask me questions, feel free to share your own experience. I don't know. You're more than welcome to chat me up about this stuff. I can't promise I'll be interesting to talk to. I've talked about it probably for too long as is already, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a thesis statement for this video, which, you know, I think makes sense. I don't really know what the thesis statement would be about a video where it's like, I have bad anxiety. It's like, what's the thesis statement? Anxiety sucks and makes you feel bad. Wow. Great fucking message, bro. You're pretty goated, actually, for that one. Who needs better help? We got you. Big fucking genius. But yeah, that's all I got, I think. I'm just gonna wrap up this, Fulgur Anjanath hunt that I've been playing very subpar in. Then I think we'll move on for now. I mean, if there's something specific you'd like me to talk about, feel free to ask, I suppose. I don't mind talking about anything. I don't mind making videos about anything in specific. I just don't like making videos if I don't think anyone's watching them, you know? So if this video gets 2 views, and one person says, "Part 2 when, please?" Like, you know, I'll probably make a video, talking about some more stuff, but if a bunch of people watch it and no one says anything, then this will probably be a one-off. Although the real thing that's going to happen is that I get like 14 total views, like 5 of which are me looking to see if anybody watched it, and no comments, and maybe 1 pity like. That's what's actually going to happen, because this video is 2 hours long, and it's about some random fucking rambling bullshit from some guy, and the first 30 minutes is him telling the story about how he went on a plane ride and it was scary. So, I don't know who the fuck I'm fooling thinking this is going to get any views, but and it's not really supposed to get views. I mean, it can, if anyone resonates with this experience or if they have valuable experiences to share. That would be ideal, of course, but really this is just something I did for myself, just to, like, talk through some of the fucking shit I've been dealing with, and just not let it sit inside me for quite so long, you know? Because really that's what it's been doing, is it's just been sitting inside me for a really long time. Because, like, I talk about the anxiety, and I talk about the agoraphobia, and I talk about how difficult certain things are, but it's like, I don't think I've told anyone before that, like, I bumped the mic, I apologize, I hope I didn't deafen you. I don't think I've told anyone before that, like, I can't, like, well, I can, but it's difficult for me to, like, watch people, like, do shit on TV that I can't do. Like, it stresses me out to do that. And it's like, oh, I'm watching Psych and Gus and Sean travel to San Francisco on a whim, like, 2 hours. It's like, I'd die. I'd explode. I'd explode doing that. But I've done shit like that a million times. It doesn't matter. It still scares me. But yeah, that's most of what I got for you. If you have something you want to ask about, please do. If you have something you want to see me talk about, please ask. Thanks for killing some monsters with me. Thanks for listening to me ramble about a bunch of fucking bullshit. And, let's see if I still remember how to do this. I do. There we go. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.